Welcome to this Wise Living Water podcast. Our messages are dedicated to guiding individuals towards a closer relationship with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Dr. Norman Wise is thrilled to embark on this journey with you. Through these podcasts, we aim to provide insightful material that will inspire and uplift your spiritual journey. Join us now as we delve into the teachings of Jesus Christ and explore how we can apply His wisdom to our daily lives. Together, we will reflect on the power of faith, love, and compassion in shaping our existence.
We are trying to feel, I'm loved. We're trying to feel, I loved. And we want, that comes out in that sexual drive. Now, within the context of marriage, that's perfectly okay as long as it's honoring to both people in the marriage. But outside of that, this is something that can cause a great deal of harm. And then also just our social drive. We don't want to be alone. And so sometimes we will seek out relationships. We even seek out relationships with people that aren't very nice to us or very kind to us because we'd rather be with somebody but nobody. And so we have this drive to, again, meet this need. And again, this is we're talking at a physical level. There's actually a biological drive that wants me to connect with people. There's a thing of touch. The East Germans decided they were going to create some super soldiers. And the way they did that, they took a group of babies. They basically just artificially, impregnated a group of women who had good stock. Odds of the soldiers being bright and strong were pretty high. They took sperm donations from men that had the right DNA structure. They took the babies. The babies were the product of the state. And they conditioned it so that these babies would never feel human touch. So everyone that interacted with them, wore gloves. There wasn't any cuddling time. There was the minimal amount of any type of contact. There was no skin-on-skin contact among these children at all. And they were programmed to be soldiers from birth. When East Germany self-destructed, it was like, well, the whole system that had created these children fell apart. In other words, that was all funded by the Communist Party. The Communist Party isn't around anymore. East Germany is very poor. They don't have millions of dollars to spend on creating super soldiers. And so a group of Americans decided they would adopt these children. And they had a lot of problems. Can you believe that? And what they found, because they started to test these children here, that whole parts of the brain had never developed because there had not been any human touch. In other words, the very physical nature of the brain had been altered because of that type. And so this actually led then to the research. So you see, you and I, at a very gut level, very physical level, we want to connect with other people. And so that's how powerful it is. Laughter, yeah, we like it because it wipes out, we seek it, your body seeks it because stress is tough. And what laughter does is releases chemicals into the body that reduces stress. And so we then will look for pleasure-producing activities. Learning, yeah, we are wired to get knowledge. We just have a hunger. Everybody see Johnny 5? It was, the circuit, short circuit. He was, input, give me input, And so that's really where children are before the age of 10. Do you understand that your children do something amazing and you did it as well? And that is, you walked into an environment where you didn't even know one word and you have learned to talk in 3 years. And that's from zero, you're at 0, and yet you're able to learn. Well, part of that drive, you see, is definitely because there's a hunger for knowledge. And then the legacy, we have the drive to have children. We have a drive to also win. The new commercials out, they ask the kids, what is better, fast or slow? You could ask the same group of kids, what is better, winning or losing? What would they say? Winning. See, winning is good, losing is bad, and this again is at a very basic level within our thing. Now, understand, every behavior you want to change is in your life now because You either think it's making you safer, more secure, and this could be and or in some ways it's making you feel more loved. You feel more cared for. Or you do it because you can't handle life without it. You've got to do it because you feel that it takes away stress out of your life. I just can imagine life. You have people that they get off work, they go home, and they instantly pour themselves 2 drinks of hard liquor because they don't think they could possibly handle life without it. Okay, so it's there for those reasons. You have learned this behavior. You will even get skilled in this behavior. You will even learn how to do the behavior better because you do think it's going to give you control. And you do feel in the end that if you do this behavior and maybe hope no one ever finds out you're doing the behavior, you will actually leave a better legacy than you did before. So you have to understand, this is actually the reason you're doing whatever it is. Now, obviously, a part of you is also saying, I would like to stop it. But understand, if you're still doing it, a larger part of you says, we can't live without it. So we must come to rule these desires, these physical desires, and so on. Go ahead and read that with me. The desires are God-given and are able to be satisfied in a morally good way. So your desire to have life can be satisfied without breaking any moral commandments. Your desire to have love can be satisfied without having any moral commandments. Justina, there's a person over here. Anybody else need notes? If you need notes, raise your hand. We can get you a copy. We've got another person over here. We guesstimated. Justina, if you make up about most likely 10 more. Yeah, and then she'll come back. Okay, let's read this together. The desires can be idolized and made the center of our lives and then become destructive. In other words, whatever becomes the ultimate concern of my life, if I say, the only thing I care about is surviving, and I will hurt anybody that threatens me, I will, not allow anyone to cross my space, I will verbally attack, physically attack, emotionally attack anybody that I see as a threat. And you say, this is who I am. You begin to identify yourself with that your survival is the most important thing on the planet. By the way, there are things more important than your survival. Your survival is important, but there's things more important. Anyone think of anything that could be so important that you should think about even sacrificing your physical life about that? Anybody? Yeah. What is it? Okay, it could be eternal salvation, although in this case, Jesus paid that, so we don't have to worry about, we don't have to give our life to get eternal life. But yeah, if it required us to die in order to have eternal life, that would be a good exchange. So that would be true, except the answer is Jesus died for us to have that, so that's a better deal. Okay, anything else? Yeah. What is that? Okay. Anything else? Say it again, louder. Okay. How about, have people ever decided that for the freedom of their country they should give up their life? Have anyone ever decided that because of their love of Jesus Christ, they're martyred? Has that happened? Yeah. There have been about 150 to 200,000 people this last year that gave up their life because they would not deny that Jesus is the Christ. So, in other words, this is not to be an ultimate value. It's valuable, but there could be at times that we would have to give up some security. Okay? And so that's why, see, none of these are to be the ultimate value. Love again. If love becomes the ultimate value, that's what we call codependency. If you live for the experience of feeling loved, and we're talking here about at a human level, then that's always going to lead into a codependency. You will idolize the relationship, you will idolize the person. Laughter, when the only thing that matters is I feel good and I get pleasure, That usually takes us into the vices, alcohol, drugs, all of these things. Because, chemically, there is a pleasure part of your brain. And if you can just figure out how to set it off, you're in great shape. Okay? And success, yes, we can sacrifice we will sacrifice, by the way, something, this is where imbalance comes in, we'll sacrifice our need to be loved and have a family in order to succeed at business. Because the only thing that really matters to us is succeeding. And we wrongly define success in some way. And so in each case, we need to think about that. So like this charioteer, they're God-given desires, represented by the horses. And of course, Plato used this in his work. But you see, you have the responsibility of directing them and making sure they don't lead you into destructive activity. The unexamined life is not lived well. Read that up there. We understand why children are afraid of darkness, but why are men afraid of light? Well, Jesus answers that. Does anyone know the answer? It's in John chapter 3. Because he uses this, in fact. Yeah. Yeah, and why do they love darkness more? The next part of it explains why we love darkness more than light. Anybody know what that says? Because in the light, their deeds will be revealed. In other words, you have to get out of denial. There are two good emotional states. Denial, you feel great. When you're in denial, you feel super. But you're not. It's an illusion. And then there's actually where we have worked through to a solution. We have made real resolution with reality. Both these states are good. This last one is really where we have to go. But a lot of times we don't really want to see who we really are. We don't want to really understand what the root of the desires are. Because, that can be ugly. We can learn something about ourselves that we don't want to see. And so when the light comes in, when suddenly revelation comes in that says, Norm, this is the problem with your heart, I might very well want to run from that because I don't want to really deal with that kind of problem. I don't want to say, the reason I work more than pray is because I trust more in my blood, sweat, and tears than I do God. And you see, we don't want to really bring that out and admit that in actuality, we have a really bad belief. And so we'll do almost everything in the world. And we'll tell ourselves another story like, I don't have any choice. Other people won't help me. I'm in this alone. If I don't do it, no one will do it. And so we tell ourselves then that we do crazy for good reasons. I am crazy, but I have a good justification for it. So the first step to gain self-control, to change behavior, is you have to examine yourself. By the way, this does mean you're not going to find the secret to changing your behavior by examining other people. It's not going to be, if I really better understand what my spouse thinks, does, motivates, then that's going to help me control my behavior. That's not true. Because no one can make you do anything. It's very important. The fear of exposure, this is what Jesus says, keeps us from this self-examination. However, understand, there's no way to live a sane, stable, or spiritual life unless you will examine yourself. Basic principle, the 100% rule. Viktor Frankl was a man who was in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. And he was part of the group that was set aside for medical experimentation. And so they would take him into the laboratory and they would do horrible things to his body. They would have surgery on him without any anesthetic. And And he couldn't even say, I control my own body, because he didn't. They literally had the ability to take him and drag him into the lab and strap him down and do these medical experiments on him. And then if he survived, which by the grace of God he did survive, he knew that it was going to be the same thing in a couple days. And so he began to think about this. And he said, well, what do I have that the Nazis cannot take from me? And as he pondered that, he said, the thing they can't take from me is I can choose not to hate them. I can choose to keep my own inner self sane, stable, and spiritual. And he did. And he also did observations of other people in the concentration camps. And there were some people, and they were under the same horrible conditions, but some people would respond by returning hate for hate, and others would respond in different ways. And some of those would respond by not becoming as monstrous as the Nazis who were torturing them. He survived this, and he actually then began a psychology called logotherapy. Logo, as you know, is the Greek word for word. And he said, this is the ultimate freedom we have. The ultimate freedom we have is the universe is not cause and effect. My behavior is not cause and effect. I can create a space between stimulus and response, and I can gain self-control. So any of you that say, I can't do this, then you have to have a discussion with Viktor Frankl, because he's most likely faced harder circumstances than you did. In other words, he's just an individual that suddenly is there, and he's saying, don't ever say to someone, I had to do it, I didn't have a choice. They made me do something bad, because he's proven that's not the case. So, there is no cause and effect for human beings. We live east of Eden. Because of this, we're going to be faced with a difficult world. We're going to have physical difficulties. We're going to have illness and sickness, and we're going to have loved ones that have illness and sickness. We're going to have times when there may not be enough, food to eat. We're going to have people who will do wicked things to us. In other words, and these people will even be people that are closest to us. In fact, some of the worst things that ever done to us will be done to us by those who, would have said they loved us the most. Okay? So it's not like, well, it's just those enemies out there who I don't know that are a danger to me. Really, the greatest danger I face are with the people that are in my circle of intimacy. And normally when this stimulus is negative, we just say, well, we have this knee-jerk reaction, and we will just say, well, you made me do this. But that's a lie. What actually happened is your computer, at the speed of light, ran it through the program, and you made a choice. Because, see, people don't respond to the same stimulus in the same way. One person, gets cut off on I-95 and, chases after a person and gives them a finger. Another person gets cut off on I-95 and begins to say the Lord's Prayer, asking God to comfort their heart. Another person begins to make intercession. You see, the thing is, it's the same getting cut off, but there's an unlimited number of reactions that we can choose. And so we have to, the first thing, until you are admitting my behavior does have a choice element, well, then you can always excuse your behavior forever. Because you're waiting for something else to change, and you have no control over anybody else. You have no control. You have very limited control over trying to keep all the poor stimulus out of your life. Now, you can sometimes do that. And that's useful. If there's some things that create a bad reaction for you, yeah, you can basically, change the environment. And that's a smart thing to do. But even so, you see, that's a reaction, that's a choice. And so my responses will let me avoid that stimulus. There was a man recently, some of you may have seen it, For his job, he had to run a bulldozer, and the neighbor got tired of him cutting the bulldozer across a little piece of property that, because, the turning radius was what it was. So the other property owner began putting up fences and all this stuff. And so they got into the normal, happy neighbor conversations. You know how those go. This is my property line, don't violate it. Well, one day, the man who had the bulldozer got upset at the other man and gave him the finger and swore at him. And the other man said, I've had enough, so he swore back and gave the finger to the guy of the bulldozer. Then the guy of the bulldozer took the bulldozer and ran over the guy's car and house. So you see, when the police got the man and said, what caused you to do this? He gave me the finger. What was I supposed to do? That is not going to go too well for him in court. But nevertheless, you see, we always have a reason. It might be a bad reason, but we always have a reason for doing everything we do. As I said, one of the key, if you want to change your behavior, slow it down. Most bad behavior is behavior that we do without thinking. We act without thinking. It's a reaction. And so anytime we're in those circumstances, our spouse dishonors us. And so we feel we have to verbally vomit on our spouse, or we have to go silent for 3 months, or whatever it is we do. Or I have to go out and I have to get drunk because my children were disrespectful to me, or whatever it is. Say, why make decisions quick? Slow it down. And ask yourself, examine yourself and say, what's going on inside of me? Is this a healthy decision? By the way, have any of you ever given advice to a friend? I mean, you really care about the friend. Have you done that? Yeah. Have you ever broken the advice that you gave to a friend when you were under a similar situation? See, the whole thing is, I want you to slow down. I want you to become your own best friend. Because there is within you, by the grace of God, your most mature self, your most wise self, and it's time to give that most mature self and wise self the keys to the car, or the keys to the bulldozer, as it may be. And the thing is, you have to decide, I'm not going to allow, and that's it, there is within us, Dr. Jekyll, our most wise, mature, spiritual self, and Mr. Hyde, or Mrs. Hyde, who is basically going to do monstrous things. And what we have to do is say, what can I do to weaken Hyde, strengthen Hyde, Dr. Jekyll, and also keep the keys, which are the decision-making moments in my life, out of the hands of Hyde. One of the things to do that is you have to slow it down. You don't get any more points in life for acting quick. So there's very few situations where you have to really speak fast, act fast, do fast. Better to think and then act. Better to think and then speak. And to think out of your most wise self. The self you wouldn't tell a friend, yeah, take your bulldozer and run over the person's house. You would say, well, no, that's not the way to handle it. But the problem is that a lot of times we're not our own best friends. Prayer comes in, because James 1 says, if anyone asks for wisdom, let him ask for God. So in the slowing down, we have a time of prayer. And developing prayer is an important part of changing behavior. Now, some people can say, well, I've done it without prayer. Well, God in His grace allows lots of things to work in this world. But ideally, really calling on God and saying, God, help, is a critical part of the equation. And also, Lord, help me understand my own actions. You see, it's not just that we lied. This is what we call confession in depth. I lie to someone. And I can confess it just at the level of I lied. But confession in depth, I ask myself, well, Norm, why did I lie? Well, I lied because if I think I told the truth, I don't think this person would love me anymore. So the real motivation is my fear of rejection, abandonment, and not being loved. And if I think telling the truth is going to make me be alone, I'm going to lie. And if I never deal with that deeper issue, I can confess lying, but I'm going to find, unfortunately, whenever I feel a relationship is on the line and I feel that telling the truth will destroy the relationship, I lie. So you see, this is what we're talking about prayer as well. And also, we make our decisions, what we say, what we do, carefully. The scripture says, wisdom dwells in prudence. Have you noticed it's a lot easier to do bad than do good? You know, we don't have to have courses on learning how to become addicted to a destructive behavior. We don't need to have a class on that. People do that naturally. Learning how to be verbally abusive to your wife, don't need to have a class on that. Because you see, the bad behavior comes as easy as breathing. Because we're east of Eden, living crazy, insanely, unstably, and not spiritually is just as easy as breathing. You don't need any training in it. You might get training in it, but you don't really need it. You can develop it all yourself. But to live a sane, stable, and spiritual life, to have control over my behavior, to have self-control, the fruit of the Spirit is self-control, that requires us to do something that doesn't seem natural, and that is slow down. We have far too much faith in spontaneity. A good 90% of the time, your spontaneous reaction is not going to be a healthy reaction. So that's important. Has the name thing gone on a while? Everybody, have you guys got the sign-in sheet over here? No. Does someone have the sign-in sheet? Someone stole the sign-in sheet. Okay. Yeah, that's what happens sometimes. It just kind of rests somewhere, so I have to keep an eye on it. Yeah. This is the problem cycle. We have a problem. There's something threatening one of our 5 key values. We have an immediate reaction, which is instantly we're going to react and want to handle it. And it especially will be our historical reaction. This is our standard operating procedure. And then our social training will kick in as well. How did my parents handle situations like this? How do my peers handle situations like this? What does the culture at large do when we handle things? How did the movie star I saw in the movie handle a situation like this? There's wisdom for you. And so we instantly, we bring in from our family, our culture, our society, and everything else, all kinds of, okay, this is ideas about how I can form my reaction. Then we filter this through our own personal belief system. This belief system may have some good ideas and some bad ideas, but it's how we interpret reality. And so we do that. Now, understand, this all takes place literally at the speed of light because your brain works on electricity. Your brain is the most efficient computer in the universe. When we made the computer, we were just trying to imitate the human brain. And the artificial brain has some advantages in the fact it has a better memory than we do. But it doesn't do any of this. It takes a computer a long time to figure out a cup's a cup. They put cameras on it and they say identify the object. That's a hard thing for a computer to do. It takes a lot of thinking. It might be a cup, might be a bowl, might be a strange ball. And so, so it has to eliminate all this stuff, and it can take it quite a while, and it has to learn, oh, that's a cup. But we do that instantly. See? Well, you do all this, and by the way, most of this is at a subconscious level, and most of us don't listen to our self-talk, and our self-talk is telling us what we believe. We just, the chatterbox inside is letting loose about 15,000, 30,000 words a day, but most of us don't pay any attention to what we're telling ourselves. And baha, the behavior. Because what we've concluded is the thing we have the most faith in to solve the problem is that behavior. And that's where our behavior comes from. So, basically, you have a group of core beliefs. These core beliefs come, and actually you tell a story to yourself based on those core beliefs. And they create emotions. Now, the emotions also can be created automatically from the body. And the only thing you can do is try to be aware, is this emotion coming out of some story I'm telling myself, or because I haven't slept for 3 days? Okay, in other words, is there some reason for me to believe that a lot of these emotions might just be because my physical body is not in a good shape? Okay? So you can't impact that immediately, directly, but you can recognize I don't need to pay much attention to those emotions, because those emotions don't reflect anything profound. They just mean my body is sick, my body is tired, my body is out of whack in some way. And so yes, it can create emotions directly. And then our behavior. Now, what it means, how many behaviors in this model take place outside of someone being emotional? What percentage? 0. See, Spock would never have acted logically except he loved logic. We are all, men and women, yes guys, take a deep breath, I know I'm destroying a main myth, masculinity, it's okay. Men have all the emotions women have. They've been created in the image of God, and they have all those emotions. And every action that every man and woman has ever made on this planet, every behavior they have in their life is a fruit of their emotions. And so the only way you can change your behavior is you've got to change your emotional state. You have to start feeling different as well as thinking different. And so you can say, well, how do I do that? Well, the easiest thing is start with the behavior and then look back at the emotion. So as I'm pondering here, I lied. What were you feeling, Norm? I was feeling fear. I was feeling anxiety. What were you afraid of, Norm? I was afraid that my best friend would never talk to me again if I told him the truth. Now, you see, I started to tell myself a story, which is telling the truth will cost me my best friend. That's the story. That created emotions. And those emotions then express themselves in an action. Okay? So what we have, behavior, emotions, the faith and story, and that's where our actions are coming from. So the question you have to ask yourself, what are actually my proverbs of life? What are my core beliefs? If there's a particular behavior that you're trying to get rid of, this is what you have to ask. What's the story behind it? No one ever does something without good reason. Good reason for them. So you have to get hold of that, and you have to ask yourself, well, what reasons am I giving myself for justifying this behavior?
Thank you for choosing to be part of the Wise Living Water podcasts with Dr. Norman Wise. We hope these podcasts serve as a source of inspiration and enlightenment as we grow in our faith together. Our content is designed to offer wisdom, encouragement, and guidance for those seeking a deeper connection with their faith. Whether you're just beginning your spiritual exploration or have been on this path for years, there's something here for everyone. If you have any comments or suggestions about today's message, please send an email to wiselivingwaterchannel@gmail.com.